Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to talk about my experience playing Mass Effect 3, a game that marks the end of a trilogy I absolutely adored. I've had some time to sit back and reflect on my playthrough, and I wanted to share what worked, what didn't, and everything in between. So let's dive into it. Let's start with one of the best additions to my team, Javik. This guy was such a core part of my squad from the moment I unlocked him. I mean, the Dark Channel ability was so powerful. Not only did it do serious damage over time, but it also had that awesome visual effect. It was one of those moves where you just feel unstoppable, you know? And Javik's presence in the game really added depth to the lore of the Protheans. His dialogue was rich, and his backstory, though tragic, made him such a fascinating character. Speaking of decisions, a struggle I had was choosing my second companion. The roster in Mass Effect 3 felt a little smaller compared to the previous two games. It was a bit of a letdown not having all those characters from Mass Effect 2 return as squaddies, especially my favourites like Jack and Grant. They were relegated to war effort assets and cameos, which was a bummer. I mean, I get it, it's the end of the trilogy, but it still stung. That being said, I ended up using Garrus as my secondary companion for most of the game. I'd switch him out now and then, but for the most part, it was me, Garrus and Javik. With my engineer class, we had most of our bases covered. The turret and the drone was so useful, especially when I needed to create distractions or add some extra firepower. The synergy between my squad mates was really satisfying. And Garrus? He's just a legend at this point. He never disappoints. Now, let's talk about combat. I chose to play as an engineer, and I have to say, I love the new combat mechanics in Mass Effect 3. The ability to use the turret and the drone made a huge difference, and having access to a variety of weapons was a huge plus. I felt more flexible than ever, but there was one little problem I encountered: the spacebar. At first I loved the idea of using space for most interactions, but it quickly became a pain when trying to quickly run around cover. You know the scenario, you're trying to run and get to safety, but the game reads your spacebar press as instead of running, it has you vault right over the cover or stick to it. It doesn't sound like much, but when you're trying to avoid incoming fire, that extra second can be deadly. It's a small issue, but I really wish they had separated the run and cover commands to make things smoother. Now, I've got to talk about one of my favourite weapons in the game, the particle rifle. This bad boy was earned through the Javik DLC, and let me tell you, it was an absolute game changer. It did massive damage and had infinite ammo, which was perfect for those long firefights. I relied on it a lot, especially when dealing with tougher enemies. It became a real staple of my arsenal. One of the aspects of Mass Effect 3 that left me feeling a bit underwhelmed was the war effort. I really thought that after gathering all these resources and building up different fleets, we'd get to choose a location and launch a full-scale assault to free a planet from the Reapers. Sadly, that didn't happen. The whole war effort mechanic felt more like ticking off a checklist to increase your readiness for the final battle. But it didn't deliver that building an army fantasy I was hoping for. I really thought we'd be able to pick a planet to liberate, but it turns out that wasn't the case. Now, let's talk about the romance side of things. When it came time to decide on a romance option, I ended up sticking with Jack, the romance I had started in Mass Effect 2. In the end, it felt like the right choice for my Shepard. It was a continuation of the bond they shared in the previous game, and I just thought it made sense for my Shepard to stay true to that relationship. Looking back, I'm really happy with the decision. It felt like a natural progression for the character, and Jack's story had come so far by this point. I was glad to give it that resolution. That being said, the ending of Mass Effect 3 was still a good conclusion to the trilogy. It tied up so many storylines, and despite some of the controversy surrounding the ending, I found peace with it. It wasn't perfect, but I felt like the series has come to a natural close. It also left me with the urge to replay the whole series from a different perspective to see how it could affect the outcome. Overall, I really enjoyed Mass Effect 3. It's a fitting end to an epic trilogy, and while it may not have been my favourite entry, that would be Mass Effect 2, The improvements in graphics and combat made it a game worth experiencing. The roster of characters, despite being smaller, was still filled with memorable moments, and honestly, the game still holds up today. If you haven't played it yet and you're a fan of RPGs or sci-fi, I highly recommend it. So, that's it for my thoughts on Mass Effect 3. What did you guys think of the game? Did you experience any of the same struggles I did? Let me know in the comments below, and if you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya!